In this presentation, we will take a look at transactions related to the cash payment journal. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. Now see the transactions on the left side. We're going to record those to the cash payment journal. We will then, at the end of the month, sum up all this activity and record that with one journal entry into the general journal. We will then post that to the general ledger, and that will be used to create the trial balance. We are using a cash payment journal that typically will be used if we have more of a manual system in which we are putting this information into this system on a manual basis rather than a computerized basis, although it is good to know this for a computerized system as well, for one reason, because the computerized system will often be used to make a cash payment journal or generate a cash payment journal. It's also good to know different types of systems in order to see what the differences are and what is the similarities between different types of accounting systems. The cash payment journal will work best when there's just a few transactions that happen repetitively, like all of these type of special journals. In the case of a cash payment journal, it might be that we're buying something consistently. In our case, if we're landscaping, maybe landscaping supplies would be something we purchase consistently, and therefore something that would work good in the cash payment journal as we record these transactions throughout a time period. The other thing that might be consistent in a cash payment journal is the accounts payable, paying off the accounts payable. The more confusing items of the cash payment journal are those other items, because of course there are many things that we're going to make cash payments for, or we could make cash payments for. So they're not going to fall into a nice grouping as does like the sales journal, where every transaction is the same, where we basically have an increase in accounts receivable and an increase in revenue or sales. The cash payment journal could be a lot of things we get cash for other than the normal things of making payments for something like our supplies or on account type of payments. Note that anything that has a cash receipt should go in the cash payment journal. So even if we're making a purchase of something that we would say, maybe that should go in the purchases journal, the purchases journal is typically reserved for purchases on account. So something that's going to accounts payable, as opposed to the cash payments journal, which will not be anything we have for cash, then will be something in the cash payment journal when cash is going out. Okay, so our transactions on 7/5. We're going to say purchased a truck for cash. So we're going to say, we could put an explanation and the purchase truck, and we're going to say the cash will always be affected. So cash is going down for the 5,000. And then we're going to say, what's the other account? Now, this is probably not a normal transaction in that it doesn't happen all the time. We don't buy trucks every day. So it's not going to go into like our normal two, which is accounts payable or landscaping. It's going to go into other in this time, which will be the 5,000. So there's our debit and a credit, basically represented in one line item, one format. We're not going to be posting it yet. We will post it in forms of a journal entry, then post it to the general ledger at the end of the month's worth of data. Then we're going to have on 7/8, we have paid cash for gas and oil. So we could say gas and oil. And we're going to say we paid $80. Now we could, when we start talking about expenses, we probably don't have an expense broken out each expense here either, because that could be a lot of expenses. Typically there are more expense type accounts than any other type of account. We then are going to put that as well to the other account here. And note that these ones that are kind of more unusual are ones that are more confusing in terms of a test question, as well as the ones that are more confusing in practice. So then we're going to say 7/15, paid cash for rent equipment needed for a job. So we'll say rent equipment in the notes, and we're going to say that it was 1,000, or actually, what was it, 75. And once again, that's going to be another probably type of expense, so we're going to have to put that into other as well. We're going to be able to know how to break these out by the explanations, hopefully, when we break out this other column in terms of our journal entries. So this is going to be the 75 into other. Then we're going to go 716, and that says paid for a year's worth of general liability insurance. So insurance, we're going to say 1,000. And once again, that's not going to be our norm. It's not going to be a paying off of accounts payable or landscaping. It's just giving an example of all the types of things that a cash payment journal could include. If we have these often, these transactions happening often, then we might have a column for some of these expenses that would be more common. But if not, we're going to put them into other and break them out. Then we're going to say on 722, we had paid L, H, and G for purchases in the past on account. And that was for 175. So we're going to say 170. Whoop, and let's put the name this time, L, H, and G. And we're going to say 175. Now this is going to be one of our more normal transactions. This is what we would expect depending on the type of company that we have. We would expect, let's make this an and. Not a dollar sign. And this is a transaction we would think would be more common in that we purchased something on account and now we're paying off the accounts payable here. So that's going to be one that if we had a long list of transactions, this accounts payable one might be one, depending on the type of company, that would be the norm of a transaction for the payments. If we purchased something for cash and that was the norm for our particular company, then it might be something like landscaping supplies in our case, or inventory, that would be the common other account that would be affected. Okay, so then we're going to say paid for fuel. This is 724. Paid for fuel and oil. So we're going to say fuel and oil. And that's going to be for 175. And once again, this is going to be an expense. So we're going to put that over here in the other column and break them out as we go. 175. And then we're going to say on 730, owner draws out money for personal use. So owner draw, and that's going to be for, what is it, $500 for the owner draw, 500. And that's going to be one that's often not normal. It's not going to be our normal type of transaction as well. So once again, this is going to go into the other. Now, obviously this example shows a lot of stuff in the other category here to try to break out all those different types of things that can happen. If we were to be most applicable for some type of journal like this, then note that it would be something that probably we actually make cash payments for regularly. And most of the cash payments then hopefully would be in one category. In our case, we buy the landscaping on account and then we're paying it off here. But if it was that we pay cash for the landscaping, you would think that a lot of transactions would be here and then we're paying off on account. Now, it's good to note that these other types of things that happen, of course, because those are going to be the ones that are going to be more unusual and therefore more confusing when looking at test questions or when looking at in practice. Okay, so we're going to sum this up now. So we'll sum it all up. Let's skip a line and put the total here. We will, of course, use the sum function to sum it up. So we are in R12 and we're going to say equals SUM. Double click that sum function and highlight from the 5,000 all the way down to R11 and enter or tab. We could go back on here and autofill it all the way across. I'm going to sum them up as we go so we can just get an idea just to make sure that we are summing everything up. So we're adding this up, sum function. I'm going to highlight the whole column even though there's only one number there because we want to be consistent as we sum up the columns. So we're going to say that one. I'm going to sum up this column, even though there's no numbers there, equals the sum, and highlight this entire column. And so if there are any changes, of course, then it would be there. If we wanted to use this worksheet in the following month, then it would be applicable. And then we're going to sum up the last column, which is going to be the 5,000 all the way down to U11, and there we have it. So we have the cash here, and then our journal entry for the entire month will be a credit to cash. It'll be a debit to accounts payable, and then it'll be some other debit to these accounts, which we'll have to go back and break out individually by using the explanation. So let's do that now. I'm going to double underline these. We'll highlight these, go to the Home tab, the font group, and we will double underline. So there we have that. Then we're going to scroll back over. We're at the end of the month. We're going to say this happened on 7/30, or that's when we're going to record all of the transactions that did happen during the month of July. So here we have it. We will say then that the cash is going to be a credit. Now, the cash is going to be on a credit. We probably want to put it on the bottom. So we're going to try to estimate how many accounts we're going to have here. And just, I'm going to say we got oil, gas, rent, insurance, accounts payable, oil, and it's probably like 5. Well, we may have to adjust this. So we're going to say that cash is going to be affected. It's going to be a credit. Here's our journal entry. I'll start with cash. It's the easiest thing to think about in the journal entry. Cash is a debit balance. We want to make it go down by doing the opposite thing to it, a credit. So I'm going to copy the cash. We're going to scroll down. I'm going to try to put it on the bottom, but I don't know how many lines it's actually going to be. This is why, in practice, sometimes we can put the credits on top just to format the journal entry, and it might be a better way to do it. Actually, I'm going to do that for now, and we'll note it later. So I'm going to right-click and paste 1, 2, 3. I'm going to put it in the credit side here. We could also indent this by going to this AD21 Home tab, alignment, and increase indent, or double click on it and click the space bar 3 times. And we're going to put this in the credit column. So we'll put the credit on top just so we can match it here to what we have in our worksheet. And so we're going to say, instead of equals, we're going to say negative. I'm going to do this with a formula in AF21, point to that 7005 and enter. So that'll pull over this 7005. We could do that by just typing in negative R12. Then we're going to scroll back over. We're going to take the next one. That's going to be the accounts payable. So the accounts payable, it's going to be a debit. And if we look at accounts payable, we're going to say, here it is. It's a credit balance account. We're going to do the opposite thing to it, a debit, to make it go down. Makes sense because what we owe is going down because we paid it with cash. So in other words, we're saying that here's the cash that's being included in terms of a credit going down. We already have that side, including this. That includes this 175. And now we're going to put the other component into it, and that's going to be the accounts payable. Going to make an adjustment as well here. This fuel and oil should be 45. So it should be this, or 40 right here. It should be this 40. So I'm going to change that to 40. We're going to scroll back over here. We're going to change this one to 40. So the fuel and oil should be 40 in both cash and in the other debit account here. Okay, so we'll pull over accounts payable into our transaction. So we need the next account to be accounts payable. Here it is, accounts payable AI13, right click and copy. We're going to put that underneath in AD22, right click and paste 1, 2, 3. Then we just need to pull over the dollar amount. I'm going to scroll back over. That will come from our worksheet. It's going to be this 175. So in AE22, we're going to say equals, point to that 175 and enter. So there we have that. Then we have the last component being the other. We can't just pull in that total number, however, because we have to break it out into each of the accounts. So we'll start with this 5,000. We got a purchase of a truck. Now, of course, the purchase, the payment here in cash is already there. We need to record the other side of it. That's a credit. This is going to be a debit. And if we purchase the truck, we might put it into some type of asset account. How about auto account that we will then depreciate over time. So this has a debit balance. We need to make it go up by doing the same thing to it, another debit. So we'll copy the auto. We'll scroll down. We're going to put that in AD23, right click and paste 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to put the debit amount, and that's going to be equal to this 5,000. We'll do that with a formula. We're in AE23 equals, scrolling up a bit, pointing to that 5,000 and enter. So there we have that 5,000 here. We'll see what else we need. We've got this 80. That's going to be the gasoline and oil. So gasoline and oil sounds like an expense. If we scroll back over here and look at our trial balance and see what we have, where we can put that, we see that we have auto expenses. That looks like a reasonable place for the gas and oil. So we're going to put that to the auto expense. I'm going to right click and copy auto expense. We'll put that in AD24, right click and paste 123. Going to scroll back over and pull the number in. So here's the amount is that 75. Scroll back down, it's going to be in the debit in AE24. We will say equals, and then scroll up and point to that 75 and enter. So there is that. Right click, we're going to highlight that, it has been placed. Then we have the insurance. So insurance, see where we want to put that. Now insurance is a little tricky. Remember, it's not typically going to go to insurance expense. When we buy it, we typically put it into prepaid insurance because we have not yet used it. So prepaid insurance is where we will put this. I'm going to copy this, right click and copy AI8. Scroll down and we're going to put that in AD25, right click and paste 123. Then we're going to put the amount in AE25, and that's going to be this 1,000. So we're going to do that with a formula in AE25 equals, scroll up just a bit to that 1,000 and enter. So there we have that. There's the 1,000. So we've done that one. Then we've got the fuel and oil. Fuel and oil. Now we already saw that before, or we saw gas and oil before. Fuel and oil probably going to go to the same area. It is the same thing here. So we could add another line item called auto expense, or we can just add that to this auto expense here, which would be easier because it'll save us some time to post it. So I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to say plus, and then we'll add to it that 40. So it's going to be that 75 plus the 40 or the 115. So that's going to be this 40 here. And then we've got the draws. So draws, if we look at our trial balance, where's draws? It's going to be in the capital area. So it's going to be the capital account of draws. And we're going to copy that, right click and copy. Has a debit balance, it always goes up in the debit direction. And we'll paste that here. Let's paste in at 123. Now we just need to put that dollar amount here in AE26. We're going to scroll back up, there it is, there's the 5,000. We want to put it in AE26. We'll do that with a formula saying equals. Scroll back up, click on that 5,000 or 500 and enter. And there we have it. So we should be in balance now. If we highlight these, we have 6,790. It's a little off here. We got $80 off. Let's see where that problem is. And the problem is here. So I picked up the, picked up the wrong number for auto expense. Picked up the 75 when I should have picked up the 80. So I'm going to adjust that formula. So we're going to adjust that. And that's, of course, the benefit of reconciling here so that we're out of balance. That's the double entry accounting system at work. So I'm going to double click on this item, AE24, double click on it, and it shows U6 and U9. If we scroll up, we see U6 is here and U9 is here. U6 is picking up the rent equipment, and it should be picking up gas and oil. So I'm going to take that U6, I'm going to delete it and say that I can delete it totally up here, and then just point to the gas and oil and enter. So there we have the auto. Now if that was confusing, we can also just delete this and just redo the entire thing and just say equals, and we're going to look for those two cells that have the auto, and that's going to be the gas and oil here, the 80 plus the 40, and enter. Okay, there's one other thing we are missing here, and that is the rent equipment. We need to add the rent equipment. So we're off by 75, or we should be if I highlight this, $75 off. If we go to our account, then we're looking for rent equipment. It's probably going to be some type of expense. So if we go equipment rental, like in all expenses, have a debit balance. We're going to do the same thing to it, increasing it in the debit direction with a debit. So we'll copy that. Going to put that down here in AD27, right click and paste 123. Going to scroll back over, and we're picking up, then we need to pick up that 75. So we are here in AE27, we will say equals, and scroll up, and we want to pick up that 75 and enter. And that should do it. If we highlight everything now, it's adds up to 0, meaning debits minus the credits equals 0. If we highlight this, it adds up to 6,870 equaling the credits. Now note that we have this credit on top, and that's not necessarily the normal. We could move that to the bottom, or we could keep it there if it's a manual journal entry because it does coincide with the order of operations we had here. The only thing that really does not coincide with the order of operations is that we put this at the bottom, or I did this time, and we could move that up if we wanted to help ourselves to look back at it at a later time to kind of match out what happened up here a bit more easily. But I think it's okay for now, so we're actually going to leave it that way at this point. You could, again, if you wanted to format it nicely, if you saw this in a computer system, it would typically take the credit and move it to the bottom, depending on the system that we're using. But it doesn't matter for recording things. So we're going to post this out now. Here's our transaction. We're going to post this to the general ledger. We've now put the entire month's worth of information into the general journal. So here's the cash account that we need to post. Here's the cash on the trial balance. It's the first account there, then it will be the first account as well on the general ledger. Here's the cash account. We are in the credit side. We want to pick up that 6,870. So we're going to be in AM10. We will say equals, scroll down just a bit, point to that 6,870 and enter. And that takes the balance down from 12,385 by 6,870 to 5,515. That then found on the trial balance as well. Scrolling back down, we now need to pick up the accounts payable. Here it is on the journal entry. Here's the accounts payable on the trial balance. We need to find that on the general ledger. So we've got the assets first and then liabilities. So here are the liabilities. Here's accounts payable. We want to be on the debit side. Accounts payable, debit side, we're in cell AT22. AT22, we're going to say equals. Then I'm going to scroll to the left, scroll into the left, and there's that 175 we want to pick up and enter. Now, if you want to just type in 175, you could, but I highly recommend using formulas. You could also just type in equals AE22. That'll bring the balance to 1,965. That then also found on the trial balance. Next piece that we need to post is going to be the auto. So the 5,000 in the auto. Here's the auto on the journal entry. Here it is on the trial balance. If we scroll over, we're looking for auto. So here's the auto. It's going to be a debit that we need to the auto. Is that right? We need a debit. Yeah, we're going to need a debit to the auto. Let's see where. And so we are in AP15. AP15. We're going to do this with a formula again. Equals, scrolling left, scrolling back down, and we're going to pick up that auto. So there's the 5,000 here in the auto. We'll say enter, and that'll pick the balance up from 0 to 5,000. Once again, you could type in the 5,000 here or type in equals AE23, and it should pick that up. That number also found then on the trial balance. Scrolling back down, we then have the auto expense. Auto expense is here on the journal entry. Auto expense is here on the trial balance. We need to find that same location on the general ledger. So we're going to scroll where it's assets, liabilities, equity, income, and then expense. So here's the assets. There's the liabilities. There's equity, then revenue and expenses. We're looking for the auto. So there's auto in BF15. So we are in BF15. We're going to do this with a formula. So we'll say equals. We will scroll left until we find this information once again. And then we're going to scroll down. And we want this auto expense of the 120 and enter. So there it is. There's the 120 for the auto expense. We're going to scroll back over to the trial balance. And there's the 120 in auto expense. Next item we're going to say is prepaid insurance. Prepaid insurance is here on the journal entry. Prepaid insurance is here on the trial balance. So we will find the prepaid insurance. It's going to be this account here. It's going to be on the debit side. So we're in AP9. AP9, prepaid insurance debit. We will say equals, scrolling left, and then scrolling down. We're looking for the prepaid insurance. There's the 1,000 prepaid insurance and enter. So that increases the prepaid insurance here on, and note we also could just type in the 1,000, but I recommend a formula, or you could type in equals AE25, and that 1,000 also found on the trial balance. Next item, we're going to scroll down and we're going to keep posting this out. We got the draws, so draws 500. That account is here on the journal entry. It's here on the trial balance. It's going to be in the same location on the general ledger, assets, liabilities, then equity. So we have the assets, we have the liabilities, and then we have equity. So we're looking for draws. We're in the draws account, the debit side, and here is the cell. It's in BB16. BB16. We will say equals, and we'll scroll left, and then we'll scroll down, looking for the draws, that 500 there, and that's in AE26, and enter. So there we have the draws. So there's the 500. You could type it in there, or you can put in equals AE26, and that should pull over the draws. 500 now appearing, that 500 also being on the trial balance. Last one should put us in balance. We're off by that 75 now. We're off by this 75. And so we're going to say the equipment will be that last piece, equipment rental. And that's going to be this item here, equipment rental. So it's all the way on the bottom of the trial balance, assets, liabilities, equity, revenue, and expenses. It's going to be the same place on the general ledger. So we've got the assets in green, liabilities in orange, equity in the light blue, and then revenue and expenses. And we are looking for the equipment rental, which is BJ9. So here it is. We're in equipment rental, debit side, and we're going to say equals. We're going to do a formula here, equals, scrolling all the way to the left, scrolling back down. We're looking for that 75 and enter. So there's the 75 here, equipment rental. Here's the 75 there. We will also see it on the trial balance if we scroll back over and scroll back down. There's the equipment rental. That should put us back in balance. We've got the zeros back in balance here. So we're back in balance on the trial balance. Here's the effect on the net income from these transactions. And that's going to be it for the purchase or the cash payment journal. The cash payment journal, everything with a payment. If we're paying cash, remember, that's when it will be in the cash payment journal. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info.